Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Enrichment Series webinar. I'm your host, Ida Abdal-Khani, and I'm on the board of the Global Alumni P&G Network. Excited to be with all of you here today and with our guest speaker, Amir Ghannad, whom I'll introduce to you in more detail in a few minutes. But first, I'd like to go ahead and tell you a little bit about our organization and take you through a few announcements. The P&G Alumni Network Enrichment Series webinars are a monthly series. They are the second Tuesday of every month at 9 a.m. Eastern so that we can have our alums from around the globe join. It's a way for us to connect our members from around the globe and also leverage the expertise of our network and to provide insight to our alums. So I encourage you to go ahead and sign up at the P&G Alumni website so that you can sign up for these enrichment series and learn more about what we do on a monthly basis. Now, who we are, in case some of you might be new today to our enrichment series and to our webinars, the P&G Alumni Network is a nonprofit. It was founded by former P&Gers, and we have over 35,000 members and over 45 chapters around the world. We are officially recognized and supported by Procter & Gamble, and our focus is really on three pillars: connections, enrichment, and philanthropy. And an announcement, so our 2021 Global Conference is coming up in November. We're working through the exact dates in November. We hold the conference every 2 years. So this is a special event for you to be able to get involved, to connect with the network and get some amazing insights and learning from experts around the world. The format this year, because of COVID, will be a hybrid. It will be a mix of virtual and in-person. The location for the in-person will be in Cincinnati, and we are working on a location in Asia as well. That is to be determined, so we will update you on that location as soon as we know. Hundreds of alumni attend our conference, and it is a multi-day program consisting of keynotes, panels, and networking. We have many influential leaders that participate in this. For example, in 2019 at our Madrid conference, we had Bracken Darrell from Logitech, Sarah Matthew, the previous CEO of Dun & Bradstreet, Daniela Riccardi from Baccarat, and many more. So 2021 is gearing up to be an amazing conference with lots of insights and learnings to be had. So we hope you will register and attend for that this upcoming November. And so without further ado, I would love to introduce you to our speaker today, Amir Ghannad, who will be talking to you about discovering the transformative leader within, the hidden saboteurs of success and fulfillment, and the habits that propel you beyond them. Amir Ghannad is an international keynote speaker and consultant specializing in leadership development and culture transformation. Amir is the author of The Transformative Leader, which has been shipped to over 30 countries, and the founder of the Ghannad Group, where he guides leaders in creating extraordinary cultures that deliver breakthrough results and unprecedented fulfillment. For over 31 years, Amir held leadership positions in multiple locations in the US, Southeast Asia, and Europe with Procter & Gamble, Sunny Delight Beverages Company, and Campbell Soup Company. Amir is very fortunate to work with his wife and their 2 adult children, who have been and continue to be his greatest cheerleaders and coaches. And as many of you know, Amir is also our valiant host for many of our webinars, and I'm honored to have him here today with us to be able to share some of his expertise and enlighten us today. We're grateful to have you, Amir. Over to you.
Well, thank you. The honor is certainly mine to be here, and I am definitely glad to have this opportunity to speak to a community of people who are so near and dear to my heart. I spent 19 years with Procter & Gamble, and it is wonderful to be in this great company. Now, today we're going to talk about discovering the transformative leader within and making extraordinary things happen for yourself and others personally and professionally. But I would be remiss if I didn't take some time to acknowledge that there are so many of us who are dealing with extraordinary challenges, whether it's keeping your business afloat, or doing your job from home while you're juggling many personal priorities and teaching the kids, or maybe you've been laid off and you're looking for a job, or really at the very basic level, staying healthy and staying alive. And I recognize that so many of us, too many of us, have lost loved ones to this global pandemic that's going on. Many of us are very concerned about the social issues that we're dealing with. And it's just, it can get overwhelming to deal with all of those. And certainly when a family member is suffering or a neighbor is suffering, you got to put first things first. You know, life is not all about go, go, go and make things happen. It's about being there, taking care of yourself, taking care of those that you care about. Now, having said that, I know from my own personal experience that any real growth that I've ever experienced in my life, and really the best results that I've produced, have always been preceded by some sort of adversity. I also know that the best chance that we have at having any kind of victory over those challenges that we face is to show up as our best self. And so today what I want to do is I want to share with you 4 hidden saboteurs of success and fulfillment, and that get in your way. And I'm going to share with you the corresponding habits that you can use to not just neutralize them and survive your challenges, but thrive in the face of those. Now, this is not a motivational speech. It is also not really imparting any kind of new knowledge. It's simply to remind you of the universal and timeless truths that you already know. But I promise you that if you listen like you never heard it before, and you go on this inquiry with me over the course of next 30, 40 minutes on how it applies to you right now and your organization and your family, then it will make a profound difference for you. Now, ultimately, the overarching goal here is to really compel you, to propel you to that next level of fulfillment and productivity, if you will. And so that's really what we're after here. Now, I have to tell you a little bit about just my own story of what I've had to deal with. And I know that many people have had it tougher than me. And oftentimes I'm asked to put on these keynotes, or people tell me, oh, you need to write a book about your life. And I've always kind of shied away from that. But I do want to mention just a few things, just to kind of reassure you that we have resilience and we can survive things. So just a quick sort of detour from our conversation. To say, my background is I'm from Iran. I came to the States when I was 16 years old. I was on my own, didn't know the language, didn't know anybody. All I had was the address to a high school in Boston, Massachusetts. And I show up and give this address to a taxi driver. It takes me there. It's raining like there's no tomorrow. And the school is closed. So I have no place to go. And finally, a policeman comes over and somehow he helps me understand that, look, this school is not going to open today. And so he takes me to a hotel and I get a room and go there. Next day, they put me up in this dorm that belongs to a college, right? So I never understood why the school was closed. For a couple of years, I thought Americans were celebrating my arrival every year. On 4th of July, there was all kinds of fireworks and everything else. But then I realized that was kind of a special day when I arrived. In a way, that was my Independence Day, right? And so about 10 days later, the dorm kicked all the high school students out. So I'm in the street. I don't know where to go, where to stay. So somehow, by grace of God, I find some place to live. And day 25, I get beat up, like really bad, like broken bones and everything. I don't want to gross you out, but it was a really terrible situation. And then, had several challenges in the first few years that I was here. But you know what? I look back and when I tell those stories, people cringe when they hear some of the details. They're like, oh, geez, how did you survive? But bottom line is, we are resilient. We can survive. And if it doesn't kill you, then it does make you stronger. And I have it on good authority that everybody on this call, everybody who's watching this video, perhaps after it's recorded, has 100% record of success of having survived all of the challenges that we've faced. So this situation that we're in right now offers us an opportunity. Now, let me kind of switch gears and talk to you a little bit about the challenges that I faced from a career perspective. So I spent 31 years in the various corporate roles in different parts of the world. But one of the most challenging and most rewarding experiences that I had was when I took over a manufacturing plant as a plant manager, and due to a lot of circumstances, including a divestiture and business growing and becoming more complex and all of this, we quickly became the worst plant in the entire company. And so what ended up happening was that was a great blessing for me. It didn't feel like it at the time, but it really helped me grow as a leader, and it helped us really create some extraordinary things for people, not just the stakeholders in the business, but also the employees. And so basically what happened was we were able to turn ourselves around from being the worst to the best. And I know you can't see all of these numbers up here, but suffice it to say that all of our numbers went from the red into the green, and we essentially made something that was unheard of happen, something that nobody could believe. And we were in the newspaper, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And I love this, even though I would have chosen a different word than worker, but I love the fact that this article sort of uplifts, lifts up or underscores, if you will, the point that this wasn't about just delivering the results. It was about lifting people up. Because we had a bold vision. In the midst of all of that mess that we were dealing with, we had a bold vision. We said we were going to be the showcase of excellence, which meant we were going to deliver the best results. But the second part of it was near and dear to my heart, which was we were going to be the cradle of prosperity. And if I were to describe to you what life felt like at the time, you would agree that we had no business declaring something really big. We had so much on our hands. We were working 12, 13-hour days just to keep our nose above the water. But you know what happened? When we actually set our sights on something really bold, it began a movement for us on both directions. One, delivering the results, and two, truly transforming people's lives. And so, in the way that we did this was actually by transforming our culture, right? It was all culture work. We had a lot of skills and capabilities, but people had been used to sort of being told what to do and so on and so forth. And in my book, The Transformative Leader, I outline 34 dimensions of how high commitment cultures are different from a regular traditional culture. Now, this term may be new to you, but the way I think about it is, we all know, we've all worked for Procter & Gamble, we're very familiar with this term HPO. Now, everybody wants to be a high-performance organization. Nobody wants to be a mediocre performing organization. But the process of becoming a high-performance organization involves actually transforming your culture, transforming the behaviors that are taking place within your culture. And that is the kind of culture that I call high-commitment culture. Now, this particular situation that we're dealing with right now with the global pandemic and so many social issues and opportunities, I really believe gives us an opportunity to really declare something bold for ourselves, for our businesses, for our employees, for our families. And so whenever I see a situation like this, I can see that there's an opportunity for us to do something extraordinary. Now, when I talk about turning this plant around, I'm often congratulated for being such a wonderful leader and all of this. And I always remind people, I said, let me tell you something. I will be the first one to raise my hand to say I am not the sharpest tool in the shed as it comes to leading plants and all this. I know so many plant managers who would run circles around me. So I am very clear that it wasn't me, it was the team that did it. But there's one thing that I take full credit for, and I'm not ashamed of it, okay? And that is the fact that I discovered what the greatest barrier to our success was. At some point, I discovered the real culprit. And in our case, it was this handsome fellow right here. So it was me being self-righteous, feeling like my boss doesn't get how awesome I am, these people in the plant don't trust me, and all of this kind of stuff that was getting in the way. And once we were able to get that out of the way, then our true progress began. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today. How can you focus on yourself, even though the problems that are out there are so real and nobody can deny that they exist? But our best chance of having some victory over those is to show up as our best selves. So, I believe that there's a transformative leader inside each of us. And yes, it's appropriate to get more skills and more tools and all of this. But really, really what makes a difference is when you get that part of you that is not an extraordinary leader, that's not a transformative leader, out of the way. So, David is in there the whole time. Just chip away at what is not David. And that's what we're going to go to work on today. As I talk with you about these 4 habits of personal transformation, the hidden saboteurs and the habits, I would caution you to really focus on yourself. I know many of you are probably going to be thinking about, well, somebody else who could use this coaching and perspective. And you're welcome to take this and share it with them, right? You might be thinking, I wish my boss was listening to this. And I completely understand that. But your best chance at actually taking this message to anybody else and coaching them is to actually experience a transformation yourself. So I would again encourage you to not listen for new knowledge, but just listen and see how it applies to you right now. So let's get into it. So the first question that I have for you relative to our first hidden saboteur is, are you fixing things or are you creating things? And there is a difference, right? Because when you're in the change mode, you are standing in the present moment, you're looking into some distant future, you don't know what that future looks like, the uncertainty that we face today in today's world, right? But you're very clear about all the problems that are right in front of you right now. And so you go playing whack-a-mole with those problems, and then every time you solve one, then another one pops up, and you have this ongoing cycle of solving problems only to create other ones and solve those. But transformation is a bit different. Transformation, on the other hand, starts with a future. Now, I know, again, I remind you, this is not new knowledge, but please just think about it right now. If you're thinking about your business, if you're thinking about sort of pivoting, if you will, this is a famous word these days, how can you do that? The way you do that is not by just focusing on today's problems. Yes, you've got to do that to survive. But look, surviving and thriving are 2 different things. Yes, you need to survive in order to ultimately thrive. But you know what? While all transformations involve change, and you got to be good at change, you got to be good at fixing things, repairing things, tweaking things, addressing issues, continuous improvement. All of that is absolutely necessary. While all transformations involve change, not all change is going to amount to a transformation. So for you to actually transform something, to successfully pivot and create a brighter future, you got to first think about that future that you want to create. And it's got to be discontinuous from today's reality. It cannot be just another version of today's reality. Today we enjoy digital media. That's not an extension of an 8-track or a cassette becoming a little bit better. It's a completely discontinuous idea. But once you know what that future looks like, then stand there and look back and say, okay, with what I know today, what do I need to do? What milestones do I need to hit? What kind of accomplishments do I need to have that I need to go to work on today to make that happen. And by the way, if you're truly being transformative, this is going to change because you're not going to know exactly what sort of barriers you face. But as long as you have this thing that you are really excited about. So I would urge you to step back and say, look, in the midst of all the change that I'm dealing with, what is that transformative vision? What is that bold vision that I'm declaring? Right? And you can't do that every day. In fact, I would suggest to you that there are some days when all you can do is survive. And there's no shame in that. Because more than likely, 80%, 90% of the work that you're doing falls in the category of change. It's necessary. You got to deal with what's in front of you. Even when you kind of plot this out, you got to still deal with what's in front of you. But when you do it with some enthusiasm and some energy about the future and some level of clarity around what priorities you're going to basically protect and what milestones, immediate milestones you're going after on your way to that future, then you have a much better chance of creating a transformation, not just changing. So habit 1 is declare a transformative future. Now, oftentimes what gets in the way of us doing that, because you know everything I just told you, but why is it that we don't do what we already know? Well, but Amir, and I get it. I got plenty of reasons myself. But here's one of the main reasons that we don't actually do this. One of the main reasons is that we say, well, what if I declare a really great future and then I fall short? And then I'm embarrassed and I'm disappointed. I might as well just go ahead and aim low so I can hit it. Well, my friends, this is not a great strategy for an extraordinary life. And here, again, I want to remind you that I'm not suggesting that you ignore the problems that are right in front of you, but in order to put them into the right context, create that extraordinary future, have some enthusiasm for that future, and look through that lens. And you know what you might find is that, sometimes you might find that some of the problems you're dealing with will go away. Maybe you're working in a physical space and you're saying, look, for us to bring everybody back, we need to put all these barriers and plexiglass guards and all of this up. So how can we do that? And you're solving that problem. Well, you know what? If your transformative future is, you know what? We can let everybody work from home. Guess what? Your problem just went away. You're going to focus on another problem that actually serves your purpose. So let's go to the next one. Do you meet 100% of your commitments? Now, I've done this around the world many, many times, and I've asked people, thousands of people, this question. Do you meet 100% of your commitments? And no hands go up. Now, I always raise my hand because I meet 100% of my commitments. And I'm about to share the secret with you. So the secret to my success is that, here it is. So I have had an exercise program for many years that I'm really committed to. Like if the weather is nice and I get enough sleep and I feel like getting up in the morning, I'm on it, 100%. You see, and when I describe that, you probably know that there are days when I just snooze the clock a few times and don't get any exercise. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Even on those days when I snooze the clock many times and don't exercise, I'm still meeting 100% of my commitments. You see, because my true commitment is to being lazy. And when you are truly committed to something, you meet that commitment. So I would encourage you to consider that you also meet 100% of your commitments. Now, the reason perhaps you wouldn't raise your hand if I asked you that question is this, that you haven't distinguished the different kinds of commitments. Maybe you were asking, you thought I was asking if you meet 100% of the commitments that you say to others that you have. And that's not what I'm talking about. Because commitments come in 3 different types. Listen, the first one is 100% commitment. That means I'm all in, like you are truly committed. And with those commitments, you meet those commitments all the time. No matter what, we've all overcome adversity and dealt with issues, but if you remain committed, you're going to make it happen. You do what it takes to make it happen. Then the next type of commitment is 0%. These are things that we have no shame about saying, I'm not committed to that. I don't care how it turns out. Don't count on me. I'm not committed, right? We're honest with others and ourselves. But then there's this third category, and it's called 50-50 commitments. And this is where I would urge you to consider that most of your commitments fall into this category. Now, nothing I tell you today is the truth. I'm just asking you, though, to kind of try it on, right? And see if it fits. Now, what I mean by 50-50 is, it's like, I'll do my part if you do yours, right? Or I'm 90% committed, which really means I'm not committed, but I'll kind of say 90%. As opposed to 50-50 or 0. See, what you do, I want you to consider, at least what I do, is when I have a 50-50 commitment, I don't call it 50-50. I say I'm 100% committed if, and then I've got all these different conditions. Well, let me tell you, if parents were 100%, parents are 100% committed to teaching their kids how to walk in the absence of some sort of a physical disability. If the kid needs to be picked up when they're little babies, 5 times, 10 times, 50 times, 500 times, you just do what it takes. Like if they were 50-50 committed, you know what would happen? At some point we'd say, I guess this one's going to be a crawler, right? But you don't see a bunch of adults crawling around saying, my parents gave up on me, because we do what it takes without condition, right? But then we have all of these commitments on the committees we're on the project teams we're on, in the family forums that we have, whatever else it is, that we say, look, I'm really, really committed, but I've got all these conditions. And what happens is those conditions get in the way and eventually turn it into a 50-50, which means I can't really count on you because your commitment is conditional upon his, and his is conditional upon hers, and then everything sort of goes to the lowest common denominator. So the suggestion I want to make to you is this, that 50-50 commitments are out of stock due to high demand, because they're very attractive, right? Because you want to make it look like you're committed, but you're really not. And so if we were living in a world where 50-50 commitments were out of stock due to high demand, you would have to do one of the following. You would have to take those 50-50 commitments and either convert them to 100% and like really go all in, or declare a 0. Now, declaring a 0 sometimes has negative consequences, because here you are, you've been pretending you're committed, but you really are not. But let me tell you, it's worth all the negative consequences, because what it does is that the 50-50 commitments are often sucking the life out of you. They are really, draining your energy, because here you are, you're pretending, first of all, that you're committed when you're not, and you're feeling a little bit like a victim, simply because you feel like, well, I am committed, but those people are not, and all of this. And so when you convert one of those to a 0 and you make the declaration and accept your consequences immediately, you immediately free up all of this energy that you can put into those things that you are 100% committed to. Now, if you're worried that some of those people that you're going to declare a 0 to might be a little upset, they might be surprised, they were like, what? Don't worry about it, because they already know. When you are 50-50 committed, when you are conditionally and partially committed, those people who count on you already know. You know how I know that? Because I know that you know that. You see it in others and they see it in you. So if you make that declaration with utmost integrity, then they are relieved that you also understand. And then they will work with you to make other arrangements. Now you might say, but Amir, I mean, you're a consultant and whatnot. Maybe you don't understand anymore that we have 15 different priorities. And I want to remind you that for 31 years, I had a real job, just like many of you, right? And I had many balls that I was juggling, and I totally get it. But here's how you do it. When you have multiple priorities, you can still remain 100% committed, but what you've got to do is communicate. Right this second, I'm committed 100% to dozens of clients, and I'm working with a lot of them right now, yesterday, today, this afternoon. But this moment, I'm here and I'm present, and I'm not being interrupted or thinking about something else. Why? Because I've communicated. And the same is true when you have multiple priorities and different stakeholders want different things from you. Here's what happens when we are so comfortable with a 50-50 world. We make a commitment to this person, another one to that person, another one to that person, then we miss this commitment and all of this kind of stuff. But if you truly hold yourself to 100 or 0, commitment being binary, then you truly force yourself to either negotiate up front, or if things are not going to go the way you had promised, you get back into communication and you work something out. And that is so much more honorable than somebody just finding out, 3 days after you owed them something that you didn't deliver it and all of that. And you know what? The biggest prize here is not just your reputation with others. It is your reputation with yourself. When you truly hold yourself to 100% commitment or 0, you get to know yourself as a person of integrity, someone whose words and actions line up. And therefore, you give yourself this power to declare something bold and make it happen. Remember that transformative future that we declared? Guess what? If you rely on yourself as someone, if you think of yourself as someone who cannot be relied upon, then that declaration is not going to do you any good. But if you know yourself to say, look, when I say something, I'm going to deliver it, or I'm going to negotiate a different outcome, and either way, I'm going to be in integrity, then your words have power. So the second habit that I'm suggesting to you is be honest about your commitments. It's 100% or 0. And by the way, 100%, yes, you might say, listen, I cannot commit to 100% of all of these things, but here's what you can do. Negotiate timing and scope and commit 100% to that portion that you can commit to, rather than committing 50% to the whole thing. Commit 100% to 50% of the scope. So the next question I have for you is, how are you showing up? So now you have a transformative future that you've declared that you're excited about, and you're meeting your commitments. You are truly being in integrity. But now what's important is, how are you showing up? What is, what's going on with you that says, when you walk into a room, what kind of energy do you bring? Do you suck the energy out of the room, or what do you do? And so here I want to tell you just a short story. So my brother was visiting several years ago, and he had 2 little kids who are grown and in college right now. But we went shopping, and these guys were tired, they were sleepy, they were hungry. At least that's what they were talking about. It's like, geez, for half an hour they were really crying and nagging, all this kind of stuff. So being the ninja motivator that I am, I went up to them and I said, listen guys, I was going to take you to Toys R Us. I was going to buy you whatever toy you wanted after this. But since you're really tired, we're just going to go home. Now, don't you can see what happened, right? They immediately jumped with joy, and they had all kinds of energy. And so the idea here is that we want you to show up as that person who is truly excited about something, but you can't do it unless you are actually, you truly are excited about a future. Maybe it's not Toys R Us for us, but we have an equivalent of that. Look, we have actually gotten used to showing up according to our knowledge and our skills. So if you know some things and you can do some things, you show up as the functional expert. But how many of us know those functional experts who show up as brilliant jerks that nobody wants to be around, and they leave dead bodies around when they work with others? So there's a third element that is required, and that is what I'm talking about. In addition to the tool sets and the skill sets, it is your mindset. If you truly want to be a transformative leader, you got to show up a certain way. And just like my niece and nephew kind of generated themselves immediately according to that future they were excited about, you got to have this mindset that brings that enthusiasm out, and you show up as an enthusiastic leader. Yes, you can still be honest about the immediate challenges. That doesn't mean you just kind of pretend like they're not there, but you show up as a person who brings enthusiasm and hope and energy and collaboration, all of that kind of thing that you need to bring. And so what's really important here is that you recognize that while your knowledge and skills are really, really important, and they're absolutely necessary, if you truly want to make a difference, and in today's world, let's face it, we have tremendous opportunity. This is an opportunity to truly rise to the occasion and be a transformative leader. Are you unifying people? Are you dividing them? Are you supporting them, or are you leaving them out in the cold? Do your employees, do your peers know that you got their back, or do they feel like they're isolated? There's all kinds of ways in which you can show up for people. And the way to do that is you simply generate yourself according to the outcome that you want. Look, we're not robots. We have emotions. I totally get it. But the point is this, that sometimes, most of the time, in fact, what happens is the default mode is that we look at our circumstances and they dictate our behavior. We get into this reactionary mode, and then that determines our attitude. Right? And I call it, having your ABCs in order. Instead of C for circumstance and B for behavior and then A for attitude, get your ABCs in order. You generate yourself with the kind of attitude that you would have if you had actually reached that transformative vision. And then you behave as such. And then you create the circumstances that you want. And look, I know this can sound Pollyanna. I know this, if you're looking at it from a cynical perspective, you say, but Amir, what the heck are you talking about? We're dealing with, I get it. Been there, done that, right? But here's what I'm telling you. If you don't do it, you're going to be in this constant mode of playing whack-a-mole every day for the next, months and years, and it doesn't work. The final habit that I want to touch on, the question I have for you is, are you watching your language? So you have a transformative vision, you are 100% committed to it, and you're generating yourself to show up a certain way, but you got to understand that what's going on in your head and what is coming out of your mouth makes a difference for you and for others. So your language is extremely important. So if you think about a basketball game, think about it this way, think about this metaphor that people on the court are playing the game, people in the stands are talking about the game. And what's interesting, at least to me anyway, is that you get paid to be on the court. It pays you to be on the court, and it costs you to be in the stands, right? And sometimes we get in the stands in our lives, don't we? We talk about things. We talk about people. We talk about circumstances that we're not happy about. But we don't necessarily get on the court to make it happen. And certainly we have an opportunity right now. We need more people on the court making it happen rather than criticizing somebody else. It's so easy. The reason that there are so many people in the stands and only a few on the court is that it's so much easier to be in the stands and have some nacho chips and drink some beer and talk about people than it is to be sweating your butt off on the court. And so my question to you is, what is it costing you to be in the stands? And what would be the payout of actually getting on the court? And look, we all get in the stands from time to time. Again, I'm not asking anybody to be a robot. When you find yourself in the stands, get back on the court. And on September 17, 2007, we actually I had this very same talk with my plant. We had an all-plant offsite. And within days, our results began to go up. And for those of you in supply chain or have those who have had any of those experiences, I can tell you our process reliability, or some call it OEE, went up by 15% within literally a few weeks. We had no new equipment, no new people. We had nothing other than a new language, the language of people on the court, not the language of people in the stands. So the final habit I want to share with you is transform your language. And yes, you can start by exercising some discipline in terms of what you share with others. But then you got to also go in here. What is my self-talk like? What is that internal dialogue like? And there are ways that you can actually interrupt that. And I'll give you one. You know, if you're thinking about something that you don't want to think about, and we know that the little voice in the back of your head always shows up, it's really great for your survival. If you're in the woods and a bear is running after you, that little voice is more than likely saying, "Run, Forrest, run," and you need to run because it's there for your survival. But the second you come up with a really great idea and you want to go out and make it happen, what does the little voice say? You know, mine, one time I was going to go talk to the CEO, and mine was like, "Do you really want to do that?" "I don't think you want to do that. You remember Dave?" I'm like, "Who's Dave?" And my little voice is like, "Yeah, exactly. He's not here anymore. He had an idea, right? And he wanted to talk to the CEO." So I'm just trying to be funny here. But here's the point. Your little voice in the back of your head is not there to help you thrive. So you got to overcome it. And one of the ways that you can do that with unwanted thoughts is begin to speak against those thoughts. And if you don't want to talk to yourself, guess what? Even better, when you get into relationships, where the basis of that relationship is not about commiserating, but about really lifting each other up. It's wonderful to be there for people when they want to vent. It's healthy. But then don't let them stay there forever. So the 4 habits that I've shared with you are really declare a transformation, be honest about your commitment, generate yourself according to your commitment, and transform your language. Now, one thing that I want to leave you with, one thought, is this notion that I think really encapsulates the idea of leadership, and that is, I am the one, and it is not about me. I am the one says, I take responsibility. I am accountable. If it's to be, it's up to me. The buck stops here. I am the one. But at the same time that I have that professional tenacity, as Jim Collins calls it, I have the personal humility to say it's not about me. Because if everything is about me, then I cannot possibly be the one. Because I'm so consumed with me. So I hope you've gotten something practical out of this that you can go apply immediately, because the theory of this stuff we already know. But what is the one thing that you're going to go and apply in your life, personally and professionally? And I got some brownies up here just to make the point that, just like if you're on a diet, if you've ever experienced that, and brownies show up and you pick one up and you forget about your diet and take a bite, right? And then at that moment, you had that breakdown, right? You took a bite of the brownie you weren't supposed to. Then it's not that first bite of the brownie that does the damage. What does the damage is this, that you look at that one and you say, well, I guess nobody's going to eat the rest of that. So I might as well finish that one. And when you do that, then you say, well, I guess I wasn't the dieting kind anyway. I'm just going to eat 6 more. So what I'm going to tell you right now is and I'm hoping that you picked up something, one thing that you're going to go do differently. The defining moment of your journey is not this moment when you decided that. The defining moment of your journey is when you actually get off track. Tomorrow, next week, next month. What are you going to do then? Are you going to say, well, I guess that's just not going to work for me? Or are you going to get back on track? I would encourage you to do that. None of us got this figured out. There's a lot of challenges and all of that. And right now, some days all we can do is survive. But if you take some of these habits into account and incorporate them, I assure you that they will bring a whole different context into your life personally and professionally. And again, it's been an honor to be with you. I want to thank you and stop here and see if we have any questions or comments. Aida, back to you.
Thank you so much, Amir. I found myself taking notes here. I've learned a lot from your talk today, and also wanted to say thank you to you for using video. So for some of our attendees, this is the first time that we've presented like this. I think it really helped Amir, so thank you for trialing that with us and being live on video. I think it made it a lot more engaging, and really appreciate that.
My pleasure.
I'll just give a minute here to see if we have any questions come in from our audience. This is your chance to ask questions of Amir live. So if anything that he spoke about today, if you have a follow-up question or it sparks something for you, feel free to go ahead and type those in. And Amir, we've gotten some comments just, telling you thank you, and this has been very timely, the context of it all. So wanted to let you know that as well.
Thank you.
And we'll just give it a second here for some questions to come in. And I wanted to go ahead while we're waiting for some questions, Amir. I wanted to take the audience through a few announcements that we have. So a few things, we talked about the conference coming up, but overall, if you'd like to get involved with the P&G Alumni Network, you can sign up for updates at pgalums.com. As I mentioned, we have 3 pillars, connection, enrichment, and philanthropy. To that end, we do have a P&G Alumni Network Foundation. You can learn more there at pgalumnifoundation.org. If any of you might be interested in potential sponsorship, especially as the conference comes up, you can partner with us by emailing sponsor@pgalums.com. And if you're just interested in potentially volunteering for the network or the foundation, potentially even maybe starting a chapter where you are. Anybody can start a chapter. So if there's not one existing today in the city in which you live, you are welcome to start one. So you can email us about that as well, or just any other thoughts. Feel free to email us at hello@pngalums.com. And then this was live, as you all know, but we do like to make sure that we have recordings, because oftentimes we have people who want to attend and last minute cannot. So today's webinar was recorded. It will be available at pgalums.com. It will be available there within a few days. So by end of the week, you will be able to see it there. And if you have any friends that are alums that you want to tell about it, let them know. It will be at pgalums.com. We also put it up on our P&G Alumni Network YouTube channel. That takes a little bit longer for it to be posted, but in about a month, you will be able to see it there as well on our YouTube channel. And again, our email for any questions or thoughts is hello@pngalums.com. Amir, I have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Sure, please.
And I must say too, I was chuckling when you were talking about the working out piece. I'm going to reframe my thinking on that in my own language with it when I decide to sleep in, that I'm committed to sleeping in on those days that I decide not to work out. So thank you for that. I did have a question about, at the very beginning, you talked about the culprit, and the culprit being your own self, right? And the need to get out of our own way. And I believe, of course, that's always important, but especially critical now in our current environment where it's, filled with uncertainty, to make sure that we get out of our own way. I was wondering, do you have any examples, maybe your own examples, or just, with all these different groups that you work with and from other leaders that you've heard of ways that they've been able to, in today's environment with the current crisis and the pandemic that's going on, when times are even more uncertain, how you can get out of your own way? I'm just wondering if you might have some examples given, heightened anxiety nowadays.
Sure, absolutely. I've got a ton of examples personally and from others as well. But here's what I want to just kind of start with, Aida, was the recognition that I had on that one day. And I remember the day that it hit me that I was the problem. I recognized on that day that all of the problems out there that I had fell into one of 3 categories. Right? I either created the problem, and there were a few that I actually created, or I'd been tolerating the problem, or I'd been, let's just say I created the problem, I'd been contributing to it, but at the very least, I was tolerating the problem. So I was like, look, if it's to be, it's up to me. And one of the examples just from my own situation was that I was really self-righteous. I was thinking, look, I just showed up in this business and there have been, everywhere I look, there are problems, but I'm being blamed. And so it's my boss's fault. The people in the plant really didn't trust their leaders. So why aren't they? I was looking out there for the solution as opposed to what can I do to earn their trust? What can I do to prove that I can actually make this happen? But look, in today's world, what I would tell you is things have changed, as we know. I mean, that's an understatement, right? And in many cases, the boss, if you will, the top leader in an organization may not be the most qualified person to figure everything out. I think those companies that have been managing by rules as opposed to leading by principle are finding it much more difficult to adapt. But in this environment, I know several leaders who have said, look, this is an environment where I need, for instance, people who are much more savvy about social media and about working, virtually and all of this to step in. And they've taken themselves out of the loop and they're there for their people, but they're saying, look, I'm not going to be the bottleneck for all the decisions because I'm not the most qualified person. I've had to do that myself. We are converting we've done all of our programs digitally over, virtually over the last 8 months. And we are creating a ton of digital products. And you know what? I'm not the most qualified person to actually strategize and actually create those things. So my kids who work with me are stepping in. So that's what I would say about that.
Okay, no, that's great. Thank you. And somewhat related to that, but a different area of your talk, Bo is asking if you can give some examples as well of how you correct yourself when you're not talking as if you're not on the court. He's trying to understand those semantics a little bit further, and he said, great talk.
Yeah, so here's the thing. When your when your words reflect only criticizing, as opposed to getting on the court and actually becoming part of the solution, then you've got to first of all recognize it. And hopefully this conversation will help you recognize that you're there. And then you simply need to stop and first of all correct that with other people. If you know yourself and other people know you as someone who is constantly going in the stands and talking about the problem, you know what? A good place to start is go back to those people and acknowledge that you've been doing that. So look, I've had this realization that I have been in the stands and not on the court. And the commitment I'm making to you all is to be on the court. And I want you to be my accountability partners. And if you find me going back in the stands, please nudge me back. So establishing that. But the other thing is just making recognizing for yourself that you can change your words. This doesn't mean, look, I'm not asking you to ignore the negative stuff that's going on around us. Look, I always talk about a thermostat and a thermometer. It's like, okay, do you want to be a thermometer that just reports what's going on, or do you want to be a thermostat? But what we got to recognize is even a thermostat has a thermometer in it. The thermostat is not sitting there denying reality. The thermostat says, oh, geez, it's 80 degrees. We want it to be 72. So then it goes to work and makes it happen. So yes, acknowledge what's going on and powerfully acknowledge it and express it. But at the same time, recognize that you have the power. And sometimes you're not the best person to judge whether you're on the court or in the stands. Other people are. And that's why it's so important to have them be your accountability partners to keep you on the court, as opposed to getting back in the stands.
Wonderful, thank you. And we've gotten several questions from people who would like slides or want to reach out to you. They're asking if it's okay if they reach out to you. Amir, what would be the best way for people to contact you?
Most certainly, if you go to the Ghannad.com, I've got over 200 blog posts and podcasts, and I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. That would be a wonderful thing. We've started a new thing that's getting ready to launch in a few weeks. It's an exclusive membership community. It's called onthecourtleadership.com. onthecourtleadership.com. So you can go there. Now, if you want to go to my website and you forget my name, because it's not a memorable name, Ghannad, you can also, if you're thinking, what was that guy's name? You can also go to whatwasthatguysname.com, and that will bring you to my website as well.
That's awesome. Very innovative. Okay, and I have one more question here. Can you elaborate more on the final slide? I am the one, and it's not about me.
Certainly. I mean, this is the one sentence, one phrase that really encapsulates to me the responsibility of leadership, the accountability and the commitment to truly understand accountability and absorb that accountability, saying, I am the one. I'm not going to blame anybody else if something doesn't get done, because I take full responsibility. It may seem like a bit of a paradox, right? Because oftentimes, somebody who says, I am the one, also thinks it's all about them. You can't get one part or the other. It doesn't work. You can't say, I'm the one and it's all about me. That's not a great leader. By the same token, you can't say, well, it's not about me, but I'm also not the one. That's not a great leader. You got to have that balance of courage and consideration. You know, I liken it in my book, The Transformative Leader, to a glass of really great lemonade, which is like a Chick-fil-A lemonade. Lots of lemon, lots of sugar. The lemon represents your courage to uphold high standards and accept accountability and responsibility. And the sugar represents your compassion and your consideration to make sure that you do it the right way. So again, I've written on this extensively as well. Please reach out to me if there's any topic that we've covered. This was a short presentation. If there's anything that you want to find out more about, please reach out to me, LinkedIn or by email, amir@theghannadgroup.com, and I'm happy to engage with you.
Thank you so much, Amir. And then everyone, just one final announcement here. Our next webinar is a global panel discussion. So a bit of a different format. You know, we typically have one expert speaker. Coming up in December, we are going to have 3 expert speakers. They'll be speaking on building a culture of anti-racism. We've got Andre Norman, Susan Ogochi, and Nanjo Reed. So we have a panel that is international in nature, and that will be December 8th. At 9 a.m. Eastern. So again, make sure to register so that you're able to join live and ask questions of the panelists. And thank you all for your engagement today. Thank you, Amir, so much for being our expert speaker today. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure those on the phone have as well. We've gotten a lot of comments saying thank you for sharing your insight and also for the positive perspective, some comments about how that's so needed right now and the encouragement. So I thank you for that. I wish you all the very best for a great day and week ahead, and I look forward to having you on future Enrichment Series webinars from the P&G Alumni Network. Thank you.